I wanted the family
Hmm.
life, but I didn't want to ever stop using.
Right.
I was willing to stop dealing for her and the kids, but I wasn't willing to stop using.
Recover now, let your voice ring clear. Together we stand, no more hiding in fear. With every success, our stories ignite. We celebrate life, we're ready to fight. Ready to fight. Oh, ready to fight. Let the world witness what we found. In recovery's light, we'll always be proud. Let the world witness what we found. In recovery's light, we'll always be proud.
I grew up in a single mother household, and my mom was a party girl. She loved to drink, smoked weed, and I'm sure she did some other stuff in the back room on occasion. But from what I knew, was mainly the alcohol and the weed. Uh, I can remember though she didn't smoke weed in front of me much. So like one day she's smoking a joint in the kitchen with a neighbor lady, and I was like 5, and I said, "What the hell are you doing?" And she got pissed because I swore, chased me down the hall and made me drink down dish soap.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so I grew up, and then my dad, he was married to another woman. They had a bar in the basement. They had parties pretty much. I went there every other weekend, but they had parties pretty much almost every time I was there. And they would give me little mugs with little bits of beer, when I was a kid. And uh, it was like normal for me. It was just always around me. So I don't know, it really came down to, I think though, like they say, everything's got a root cause, and I had some adverse childhood experiences that I think really contributed to why when I did start messing with stuff, I dove in the way I did because it was an escape and it was a way to like self-medicate. But like I was repeatedly sexually abused by a cousin of mine when I was 5 for a few months because my mom had been in a bad motorcycle accident, and she had like the worst head injury in recorded history in the state of Minnesota at the time. Head was the size of a watermelon. I think she was in a coma for 3 months, and then she was in the hospital for another few 4 months after that. Uh, I stayed at that uncle and aunt's house for 3 months, and their son, 11 years older than me. So I was 5 and he was 16. He repeatedly molested me over that period of time.
Did you ever report that to your mom or to his parents? Did anybody ever find out?
Yeah. I one day, because even at a young age of like 5 years old, you start to catch on to like patterns, right? Like he would catch me in the bathroom a lot and stuff. So he had done that so many times, and I had tied a jump rope to my uncle's doorknob. I remember, and I went in there to pee, and then he came in behind me and shut the door, pushed him, and he fell in the tub. And then I tied that jump rope to the door and I ran naked down the road. And this was like kind of on a country neighborhood. The houses weren't super far apart, but they were definitely not close. So I had to like run down a dirt road and then up this long driveway to the kitty corner house, which was actually probably maybe almost a quarter mile down the road or whatever. Rang the doorbell, and this lady answered, and I said, my cousin, and she called the authorities. He got in trouble, and then he had to go live with his grandma for like the rest of his teens. And I think he lived there. He may live there today. I don't know.
I've been around that experience with other children, not while I was growing up. Um, but I noticed that the family, they didn't want to believe it about their son. So that was your aunt and uncle. Did they believe you? Did they resent you for that? Was there
Um,
any backlash?
I know that they believed it, but what their feelings were about it or any of that, I have no idea because we never spoke about it again. I was close with my cousin Nikki, who's his little sister, and she lived there. And like this girl Jennifer down the road, we hung out. But yeah, like they never talked. It was just like I remember how scared I was the first time my mom, because she had recovered, but the first time my mom wanted to like said Nicole wants to spend the night or do a sleepover, and I was so scared to go over there. But because I had hurt him, and I was scared he was going to hurt me and or do what he was doing before. So I was just totally terrified, and mom had to really like reassure me that he will not be there. He is court ordered to stay. Like he can't go within 1,000 yards of that place, and he's staying at his grandma's, and he'll get in big trouble if he goes over there. So, I don't know. My aunt and uncle never really ever talked about it to me. It's just weird, like the sounds. I always thought that, like, especially when I was growing up into my later teens and adulthood. It's like my family don't talk about feelings, dude. They just don't.
Was it easy for you to talk about with other people, or was that a secret you kept from everybody else?
I think it wasn't even so much that it was a secret. It was that I was so young. I think the only coping mechanism that I had was very like primal one. It was just, you put it in a box and it's hidden. So I didn't address that or even remember it. I think I blocked out the memory till I was like 13.
Yeah. Now, did you ever receive any counseling or treatment for that, or never?
My mom put me in therapy for a time, and it was more like play therapy, and I don't think I talked at all about it in there. I went for like a year probably, and it was like we just played board games, and they
Yeah.
would try to get me to talk about it, but I would just like either change the subject or shut down. I freaked out my mom, and I felt shame, and I just was like, I don't think I'll ever do that again. So I didn't touch needles for a while after that, couple years, and then I ended up getting into dealing drugs, and then I ended up getting into shooting drugs like a lot more.
So, how old were you when you jumped on the train?
13.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
And then I was 15 when I started selling weed, coke, and then 16 I started selling meth, acid, shrooms.
had you gone back home or no?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
When I woke up in the hospital from that OD, I think I was gone for like 2 weeks maybe.
Oh, wow.
And mom
Wow.
was
So
like,
so you found trouble right away.
oh, dude. Yeah, I did. And I just didn't care. But I'll tell you this, dude, and I say it often. It's like at the time in my teens, finding it was weird. Like in drugs, I found obviously medicinal purposes and it made life like tolerable. I mean, drugs probably saved my life back then because I had a lot of suicidal thoughts and stuff. And they went away when I started using. And so I never stopped. Uh, but as a result, I also, school suffered, relationships at home suffered, but I also found kind of like a purpose in the selling of the drugs and like a popularity that I never knew before, or like a power from that hustle. So I really there were so many what seemed to be really great benefits of that lifestyle for me at that time. Just nobody ever warns you that that gets weird later.
Yeah. So, and that's what I try to tell people is, back in the 80s, the message was drugs are bad, drugs are bad. And then we ended up trying them at some point and they didn't seem so bad.
No.
They served the purpose that, we might not have even known what the purpose was, but they did something for us. Yeah. And it didn't seem so awful, So that's why I don't believe in that messaging anymore, because once somebody tries something and they get that benefit from it, you can't convince them it's bad. It leads to bad, but I know when I was using that never entered my mind. I never thought, I'm going to overdose and die. I thought I'm just going to do a little bit till I feel good. And then I just do that all the time.
Yeah. Yep. So it's crazy. I did not expect it to ever take a turn on me. I had such an illusion of control in my existence, and I felt like everything was going to be okay. And, like I had the world by the balls. I felt like, and it couldn't have turned out differently.
So how long did you find yourself selling drugs and being in that part of the lifestyle?
As long as I did drugs, I was probably selling drugs, except for maybe short stints. Because, it would be like sometimes things wouldn't work out with a supplier, or maybe I was getting too out of hand with a certain substance and then I made some dumb mistakes or whatever. But I would always end up getting back into it, like it just made sense when you're doing a bunch of drugs and that if you sell the drugs, you can get your supply for free and maybe have a little money for your pocket. It's like,
yeah, because it sucks to be broke all the time of doing it. And I remember one of the last resentments that I was building before I decided to get better was, I noticed that the kid that I watched grow up from 13, he'd become my dealer. And I was watching him buying 4-wheelers and dirt bikes and cars. He didn't even have a license. He was buying guns, and it was all my money. And I hated that. I was going without. I didn't even have a car to drive. I was walking across town because I had traded my car in so I could get a couple bags of dope. And, here he was with stuff that he couldn't even use. And I resented that. So, I was sick and tired of watching him get the things that I wish I had, and that was one of the things that helped me decide to get better, just, watching somebody else have everything that I couldn't have because I was giving it to them,
Yeah.
And that's another thing. I don't believe we lose things in our addiction. I mean, we give it away.
Yeah.
We're happy to hand it over. It's not the idea that somebody's stealing it from us. Ultimately we got to take that responsibility. We gave it away. We decided to do it. So I couldn't wrap my head around it anymore. Why am I giving this kid all of my stuff when I'm going without? And, it didn't make sense anymore. Yeah. So early on, I was, my addiction started with an injury. I started drinking at 12. I was an alcoholic at 17, going to the bars in Canada 6 nights a week. When I got hurt, I was getting all of these oxys, the opiate epidemic, and I was selling them cheap, and I was basically giving them away to people. And then when I'd run out and I'd need some, I'd be paying almost twice as much to get them back. And, just that stupidity, it didn't make any sense now that I'm, clear-minded. But, in the moment, you do what you got to do to get what you need. And, it's It doesn't make a lot of sense. Did you ever go to prison?
No, nope. I went to jail a few times.
Hmm.
I had a kid when I was 18, and then with my high school sweetheart. And then when I was 20, we had a little girl. And when I was 21, uh, our relationship was, tumultuous throughout because of our partying and stuff. So the babies, it was like, I thought that I could carry on and that should be okay. Like when she was pregnant one time, we broke up, and I remember telling her, here, and I threw the phone and I said, call your parents because you're not going to be able to get away with this there, because she was pregnant with our first child.
And
I figured by sending her back to mom and dad's that she really wouldn't have a choice.
right.
I don't know. But all I do know is that was like the end of that. And I thought it was never gonna like work out for us, and then we ended up, getting back together and having that second baby. But it was like breakups like that where I just didn't want to change. I wanted the family life, but I didn't want to ever stop using.
Right.
I was willing to stop dealing for her and the kids, but I wasn't willing to stop using.
Yeah, and there's a few times in my relationship. I mean, my first marriage, I'm divorced now. I got divorced, a year and a half ago in recovery. We had a long 17 years of using together. All those problems. I don't want you using with other people. Better not have something that you're not sharing with me. All that was the end of the world, at the time. So I mean, it's over. And then a couple months later, it'd be nothing's better. Can't do everything alone. Can't afford it. Can't find it. Don't have the same connections. All that stuff. So we ended up getting back together all the time. After recovery, we tried to make it work, and I think it was the drugs that was keeping us together. As you said earlier, it kind of made life tolerable, worth doing. What made you decide to get help and enter recovery?
I had mentioned that we had two kids together, and when that relationship ultimately really did dissolve for good the last time, at that point we had a house with a swing set, all that stuff. And when we split, it was because she shut down on me and I didn't really feel any love in the home. And I was so maladjusted to life, dude. I packed all my stuff when she was gone and I left. And then I tried calling and nobody answered for like weeks. And then when they finally did, they said I could come see the kids. I'll never forget it. It was Easter Sunday. I showed up at like 5 when they told me to at her parents'. My daughter was 1 and she wouldn't come out from behind grandma's leg for like the first 20 minutes. My son was all over me. He was 3. But I wasn't there for 30 minutes and the timer went off in the kitchen and they're like, oh, dinner's done. You got to go. And instead of recognizing what a huge deal it was that the door was open and I had a foot in it and I didn't have to like feel like I was losing my kids. Instead, I was so hurt by what they did and how it made me feel, how small it made me feel. I just like flipped out outside. I remember I cracked my dashboard and I was like stabbing my steering wheel on my F-250 with a pocket knife and just throwing a fit. I squealed out of there. I almost hit somebody's mailbox. I swore to God that I would never put them in a position where they could do that to me again. Instead of realizing how important it was that the door was open. What a selfish thing, you know. I look back, it took, working the 12 steps to like see this way. But yeah, that was a big mistake on my part. So when I left that time, I never saw my kids again. So I was estranged, and I mean, one time in my recovery, I got to meet my oldest son, who is now 26, but this was in 2018, so you know, that was just like a couple years clean at that point. But man, it was just like, you know, I got his email, he never responds, and I know the world don't owe me nothing. I'm not entitled to anything. And I get, you know, I send him updates every few times a year. But I mean, this is what happens, you know. It's like I can be doing good now in recovery. I can be giving back. I can be helping people. I can be maybe tipping the spiritual skills, you know, for myself and for my eternity with, you know, whatever. But it doesn't mean that anybody that was hurt in the wake of my addiction owes me anything. So what do I want them to find though, right, Michael? Like I want them to find, if they ever change their heart down the road, like this guy for sure.
You know, there's a lot of people who have lost their kids, and you know they're now in recovery and they're doing the work, and you know they're working towards getting that back. And then there's people that I know that are still using, and they say, "What's the point? I'm never going to get them back. They're never going to want to talk to me." But just like you said, they're young. You know, there's still so much more to life now that at any point in time they can show up.
I have hope. I do.
Right. And what do you, and like you know, and like you said, what do you want them to find? Do you want them to find the guy that they remember from when you were there, or the guy that you are now? You know, the guy you've become without using. And prepare yourself, even if it's for another 20 years, for that day when they do show up. I know a lot of adults who didn't know their parents growing up. And, you know, today they'll do anything to figure out, you know, where they are and who they are and what's going on, you know, because they're curious, you know. So curiosity is going to eventually, you know, potentially lead them back looking for you. So, you know, prepare yourself for that and make sure that you're presenting well.
I know I have hope, and this is exactly why all my social media profiles are set to public. I want it to be really easy to not only find me, but scroll me, look into me, you know, check out the content, man. There's so much content of me sharing my story and doing podcasts.
Grew up in shadows, a child lost in pain, a mother with bottles, a life in the rain. He grew up in shadows, a child lost in pain, a mother with bottles, a life in the rain. He grew up in shadows, a child lost in pain, a mother with bottles, a life in the rain. He grew up in shadows, a child lost in pain, a mother with bottles, a life in the rain. He grew up in shadows, a child lost in pain, a mother with bottles, a life in the rain. At 13 he wandered, left home with a dream. Hop on that train, it wasn't what it seemed. From the highs to lows, he felt it all. He's the pillar, he's the way out, sharing his story, breaking it down. With faith on his side and hope in his arm, he stands for the lost, a brand new start. Heart beating chaos, he stumbled and fell, chasing that high, trapped in his hell. But a moment of clarity, face down on the floor, he called out for help. He was ready to roar. In the darkness, he found a spark. He's the pillar, he's the way out, sharing his story, breaking it down. With faith on his side and hope in his heart, he stands for the lost, a brand new start. From struggle to strength, he's paving the road, and I cover his light. He lies alone.
Jason and I recover loud.
Voices echo in 1,000 ways. We rise up, breaking chains of the past. With courage and strength, we're free at last. Shout it out, let the world know. Together we rise, we won't be slow. Recover loud, let your voice ring clear. Together we stand, no more hiding in fear. With every success, our stories ignite. We celebrate life, we're ready to fight. Each story told, a beacon of light. Through the valleys we ignite the fight. Hand in hand we'll chase away the fear. In this journey of hope we'll persevere. Hear the cries, the laughter, the pain. In our unity we'll break every chain. Recover loud, let your voice ring clear. Together we stand, no more hiding in fear. With every success, our stories ignite.